Can you give us a little bit of background about Flask Data, how the idea came about and what's happening with it, how it's improving clinical diagnostic and decision-making of COVID treatment right now?
Okay, so I tell you about myself, tell you how we got the idea, and tell you what we're doing, how we're helping people. My background is I'd worked in the cybersecurity space for several years. I worked for a company called Fidelis Security that was sold about 6-7 years ago to General Dynamics, and I moved on and I found myself in medical device security. Then about 7 years ago, I was doing a gig on medical device security for a company that was submitting to FDA. And I saw how incredibly stupid and slow the whole process was in terms of getting clean data. And I said, it's impossible. We just sold this company that did 10 gigabit real-time detection and prevention of data theft. And how come these guys, and they said, oh, it's a lot of data. I said, what are you kidding me? I said, a lot of data is my telco customers with 10 million cellular subscribers and 100,000 cyber events a day on the network. You guys have 180 patients and you're telling me you have a lot of data? Come on, give me a break. So, you know, my advantage was that I was totally naive. I didn't know anything about clinical trials. That's very good, not knowing anything, because I didn't have any preconceptions. And my partner, who became my co-founder, is a medical scientist. And we started talking to companies, and people said, well, it's at the time we had an idea to predict adverse events, tell people who are running clinical trials, and then in clinical care when people might have side effects, which seemed to be a worthy cause. We discovered very quickly that's a very difficult problem to solve. In the meantime, all the people we talked to said, well, you have a great idea, but something, forget about this adverse event. Why don't you just give us an easy to use platform to collect data, and then we'll see. So people started paying us money to collect data, in addition to data collection from patients, investigators, and connected devices. We introduced the notion of automated detection and response, which is an idea that was inspired from the cybersecurity space, where you have automated detection for malware on your phone. And basically what it does, it tests the data all the time automatically for protocol deviations, for missing data, for missing events, for events in the wrong order, anything that could possibly go wrong. And then basically it alerts the people who are running the study all and up and down the value chain, from the patient all the way up to the principal investigator, that there's an issue, and it just keeps things on track. Now, we've done in the past 3 years, we've done 30 studies. 3 have received FDA clearance on the platform. One is in the pain space, in migraine, and one is in gastro, but we have a lot of gastro studies on the platform, and they're both having extremely high performance. Things go very fast, and they have very good compliance to the protocol and patient adherence to the treatment. So it was like, one of those moments in life we'd say, oh, hey, this stuff really works. And
that's great.
I tend to try not to believe my own storytelling, but after a while you see that it actually works, and that was very gratifying. We have right now with COVID-19, we have 3 studies. They're all drug studies related that are taking place in hospitals. That's about what I can say right now. I can't say a lot more about that. In one of the cases, at least 2 of the sites, they have 2 hospitals in the study. And basically our idea is that in a clinical study, in a clinical trial, and in clinical care, there's so many things that can go wrong. We know that we certainly can't control everything, or maybe very little. The whole idea behind the platform is to provide reliable data, verified data for decision makers. And that the decision makers up and down the chain, has been from a patient all the way up to the CEO of the company. And when you get valid data into the decision-making process of people in the clinical development and later the clinical care process, you have a much better chance of dealing with problems, with issues, with things that go wrong, unexpected things. And just in general, even if you know exactly what you're doing and you're sure you're not making a mistake, which is very unusual in the healthcare world, at least you know that you have valid data you can rely on to make a decision.
Are you pulling data, Denny, from the EMRs? Is that how you're getting clean data? Is that the objective?
So we pull data from actually from any number of sources. We pull data from the patient themselves, from a wearable or a phone. We pull data. We get data from the site coordinator, usually a nurse who works with the patient in the hospital. We get data from the investigator. We can pull data from external systems like the EMR. So we have three main sources of data: the patient, the caregiver, the care provider, and any assortment of wearable or home devices that are connected to the network. So the idea is that there's a lot of talk today about digital health and being patient-centric, and for sure, it's high time that we spent more time talking to patients as people. But indeed, when you're looking at valid data, there's more than just the hospital or the patient. If you take all the sources of data and you put them together, then you stand a much better chance of taking a good decision.
Absolutely.
So that's what it's about. It's about actually enriching the decision-making with this combination of data from patients, doctors, and the devices that they have. Like I said, if you would have asked me like 3 years ago, I probably would have said, I don't know if this works, if this is going to work, but it actually does. And we're getting incredibly high levels of compliance with the clinical protocols in the past 10 trials that have run on the platform. Once that happens, that means that things tend to go very fast. Regarding what's happening in Israel, as you probably know, is just like a hotbed of innovation in a number of areas, probably many. One of them is, of course, water and cyber is well known, but Israel is, I think, doing a tremendous amount of work, innovation in the area of digital health. And I won't go into maybe the ecosystem reasons for that, but we've just been chosen to be part of a program with AstraZeneca, the big pharmaceutical company, and JVP VC, which is one of the biggest venture capital firms in Israel and in the world in general. So JVP and AstraZeneca have created this partnership program, and they interviewed like 100 companies, and they selected 9. So we're one of the 9 that got selected to the program.
Fantastic.
And yeah, it's fantastic for us, and it's an experience. It's certainly a great experience. They're incredibly attentive to the people in the program and just looking for opportunities to help the startups in the program develop. Certainly from JBP perspective, it's a chance to do live due diligence on these companies. When I say live, because they have AstraZeneca on court. And they also have Shaarei Tzedek Hospital as one of their partners there. So between Shaarei Tzedek and AstraZeneca, they can do pretty good due diligence.
Can you quantify how much better or improved the system is as a result of your design and innovation? How much faster will we be able to bring products to market or diagnose disease or improve treatment care?
There is a stat that we look at, which we call data latency, which is how long it takes for the data to get validated and into the hands of the principal investigator. The first study we did on the platform 4 years ago, the data latency was like maybe 90 days.
Wow.
Like sponsors that are using the system today, they have latency about 2-3 days. And the one who is like our winner in using the system well, they're down to less than a day.
Phenomenal. So what took 3 months, you're now getting data aggregated, organized, and synthesized in about 1 day. Phenomenal.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So you can do that. So once you can, it's a combination of automation and also automating detection of issues. Of course, between you and me, Jonathan, it's also a question of how well the clinical team use the system.
Right.
So if the clinical team is like, well, I'm stuck in my ways and I'm going to wait for somebody to produce a report for me, then
it's not going to work.
It's not going to work for them. So we explain to people that it's like this. Think of it like your credit card statement.
Mm-hmm.
If some in Albania stole your credit card and bought a high-end home video, home cinema system for $10,000, and you didn't pay attention to the alert that the SMS that you got from your credit card company, and
Right.
you only check your statements once every 3 months, and then you call up Visa and you say, hey, some guy from Albania just bought a home and said, when did it happen? 3 months ago. We're very sorry because our terms of service were that will only
Correct.
allow you to deny charges in the first 30 days, right? So I explained that.
It's a tool. It's all about how the user uses it.
That's right. So the people that use the tool really well, that they look at it like their bank account, and they're checking their credit card statement all the time. And mind you, they don't have to go online. The system actually sends them text telling them that things happen. So our notion is that for really high priority stuff, the system will send them a text. But generally, we try to get people used to the idea that they're supposed to look at the dashboard all the time, and get used to looking, investigating, and discovering problems.
Danny, I appreciate you taking the time to tell us a little bit about Flask and how a scientist with very little medical background was able to solve a real problem that enables expedited throughput and flow of medication and treatment to people like you and me. So thank you, Danny. For those looking to make a broadly diversified Israeli equity investment, contact the Jerusalem portfolio, where in just a few minutes, anyone, virtually anyone, can open up an account and fund it so they too can have a stake in Israel. Thank you very much.